Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Welcome to another installment of 4E Fridays. It's been a little while since I've done one of these videos, and I really do want to get back into the series. And I think I might even do a poll to see what types of things people might be interested in when it comes to exploring D&D 4th edition. But today, I just want to take a look at the Player's Handbook 2. So this is the book that brings us the primal characters. The first original Player's Handbook, which I've also got right here, had the Arcane, Divine, and Martial characters. And it did have classes like the Cleric, the Fighter, the Paladin, the Ranger, the Rogue, the Wizard, as well as the Warlock and the Warlord. But in this one, we've got some of the classes that were missing from the 3rd edition Player's Handbook, as well as one of the player character races that was also not available in the original 4E hardcover. So, if you haven't seen any of the intro to 4th edition animated videos that Wizards of the Coast put out back in the early 2007, 2008, just as the books were coming out, you really should check those out, because one of the big things with the release of the first Player's Handbook was that the Gnome was no longer a Player's Handbook race, and instead it was a creature that appeared in the monster manual. And the Tiefling, which had been a monster before, had now found itself to be in the Player's Handbook. So there were some great videos with the Gnome, and then when he does become a player character, that also was a great video. There was one where he was where there was a mind flare conducting job interviews to determine if the creatures before him would be useful as thralls or food. So there's just some great 4E stuff out there for those videos, those animated videos. If you haven't seen them, I really highly recommend them. But yeah, here we got the Player's Handbook 2, and you can see we do have a Goliath on the cover there, and it really does show off the primal power source, or the primal character styles. You have the lightning strikes in the background, the vegetation with the glowing glyphs and everything through it there. So some really cool stuff. And this released in what do we got here? First publishing was in March 2009. Okay. I was so about a year after, a little less than a year after the original core rules came out. So we're not going to spend a lot of time going in depth with what's in here, but we will flip through the book and kind of see what we have here. We do have the Devas. I think that's how you pronounce it. Devas, or I don't think it's Divas, but it might be Diva. But they are essentially they were once immortal servitors of the gods. And then they sort of reincarnated as mortal characters. So they get ability called the Memory of 1,000 Lifetimes. You can use once per encounter. It's reaction, so if you make an attack roll or saving throw or skill check, then you dislike the result, you get to add a d6 to the roll. So kind of neat stuff there. There's our gnome, which I guess, is that what's on the front? I don't think she's a gnome. I think she's one of the other races that's in there. But there we've got our gnomes. They do look very different. But again, you've got to check out the 4E cartoon gnome with his minion Francis. Just such great videos. They are small, and so being small, you can't use two-handed weapons. And if you use a versatile weapon, you have to use it two-handed, but you don't gain the benefit of dealing, I think it's an extra point of damage using a weapon two-handed normally. And they have the fade away ability, so it's also a reaction. So if you take damage, it says you are invisible until you attack or until the end of your next turn. Then, of course, we have our Goliaths here. So they appeared in the Races of Stone book from D&D 3.5. So this is their first sort of entry into a player's handbook or a core book. And they have Stone's Endurance, which gives them the ability to resist damage. We have our half-orcs, which are also not in the original player's handbook. So they have Ferocious Assault. If they hit an enemy, the attack deals an extra weapon die of damage if it's a weapon attack, or an extra d8 if it isn't. Then we have our Shifter, which I'm pretty sure is what she is. So shifters were actually introduced in Eberron, or at least these are like the ones that were introduced in Eberron. So they have lycanthrope blood in their system and in their veins, but they're not like directly, like they're not a were creature, but they have like they're descended from a were creature. And then we've also got some ancestral Paragon Paths, which are unique to this book or introduced in this book. So, like, some of them are tied to specific ancestries, like the Ancestral Incarnate is the Deva. And then we got the Blood Fury Savage for the Half-Orc. The Fey Beguiler for the Gnome. Then we got some, again, for the Player's Handbook, so we got the Firstborn Warden. The Halfling Scoundrel, the Moonstalker, which is for the Shifter, the Scion of Argosia for the Dragonborn. I was wondering if that was Argonassin, but like related to that, but I don't think it is. We got this the Share Knight for the Eladrin, Stone Blessed for the Goliath, Twilight Guardian for the Elf, the Torothi Highborn. And we got our classes here. So, again, one of the things that 4th edition had a ton of were character classes. And it's one of the things I thought was actually kind of cool about the system is that there were all these sort of like different themes and different mixes. So we have the Avenger, which I think was the Avenger one of the ones that sort of got developed into a subclass for 5e paladins. But it's kind of like a paladin type of character, but they are the more like judgmental, one of the more like judgmental types. So they are kind of the, I guess, the ones who would like carry out sentences, type of thing. So each Avenger chooses a single deity from the pantheon and gives his or her exclusive service to that deity. And let's take a look at some of the abilities that they have here. So they have Aura of Faith. So the favor of your deity wards you from harm. While you are wearing neither heavy armor nor using a shield, you get a +3 bonus to armor class. That's actually not bad. Avenger's Censor. So if you have the Oath of Enmity, the target moves. If the target of your Oath of Enmity, which is down here, moves away from you willingly, you gain a +2 bonus to damage rolls against the target, equal to 2 plus your Dex modifier to the end of your next turn, and it goes up as you go up in level. Censor of Retribution. When any enemy other than your Oath of Enmity targets you, you gain a bonus damage rolls against your target, against your Oath of Enmity target, equal to your Intelligence modifier. So it kind of uses a few different abilities here. Their key attribute is Wisdom, Dexterity, and Intelligence. So the Oath of Enmity is an encounter ability. It is a minor action, so it doesn't count towards your normal action economy. And you choose one creature within a 10-foot burst of squares all around you. Actually, no, it's just 10-foot burst. It's not close burst. So you choose a point. Burst is adjacent to you. So you are adjacent to where the square originates from. But anything within that 10 by 10 square, you choose one enemy in there. When you make a melee attack against the target, and the target is the only enemy adjacent to you, you make 2 attack rolls and use either result, so kind of an early form of advantage. This effect lasts until the end of the encounter or until the target drops your hit points, at which point you regain the use of the power. So that's, again, kind of neat. You actually don't have to wait for a short rest to get it back. If your target goes down, you get to shift to another one. If another target or another effect lets you roll twice and use a higher result when making the attack roll, this power has no effect on that attack. If an effect forces you to roll twice and use a lower result when making an attack roll, this power has no effect on that attack either. Oh, okay. If an effect lets you re-roll the attack roll when you roll twice because of this power, you get to re-roll both dice. So that's kind of interesting. So again, it's like I said, it's kind of an early take on advantage, disadvantage. And I'm not going to go through like every class's abilities or anything like that, but I just thought this would be kind of interesting to take a look at. So if something gives you an ability where you have to roll twice and take the lesser, so if it would give you like what we know now as disadvantage, this doesn't actually cancel that out, so that's interesting. Which is a later change they would make to advantage and disadvantage. So if you have advantage from one circumstance and disadvantage, they cancel each other out. But this one doesn't actually do that. However, if you get to re-roll an effect, if you have something that lets you re-roll an attack after you've used this ability, you do get to re-roll both dice, which is pretty cool. All right. And they get like Channel Divinity stuff, the Bond of Pursuit. So yeah, they're just all about singling out a target and just pummeling it basically to death. So like I said, there's just some cool like concepts for classes. Like some of these things would probably have been prestige classes in earlier like 3rd edition D&D, but like fully expanded out. We do have our Barbarian here, and again the Barbarian class. So they have the Barbarian Agility. So if they're not wearing heavy armor, they gain +1 to AC and Reflex, and then that increases as they reach each tier. So when they reach 11th level, the Paragon tier, it goes up to +2, and then when they reach the Epic tier, it goes up to +3. So a smaller bonus than we saw with the Avenger, but this also applies to your Reflex, which is really cool. All right, so they also have these Rage abilities. So for the Rage, the way that it works is like you don't have necessarily like the ability to just like rage a certain number of times per day. Instead, you have daily abilities which have the rage keyword. And when you use one of these abilities, you are in a rage until you either use a new rage ability that replaces the one that you currently had, or the end of the encounter. So it's not one of those things where you use the attack and then it's over, or like the rage isn't defined by like a set number of rounds. It's just until you use another rage power, or or the encounter ends. So that's kind of how that works. So we got like Blood Hunt Rage. So with the Blood Hunt Rage, it's an attack, weapon attack, melee weapon attack. You target one character. It does 3 weapon dice plus your strength modifier, half damage on a miss, and then you enter the rage of the Blood Hunt until your rage ends. You gain a bonus to melee damage rolls equal to your Constitution modifier if either you or your target is bloodied. So yeah, so that's kind of how they decided to do the Barbarian. When the Barbarian reaches 5th level, they get this Rage Strike. So when they're raging, so the requirement is you must be raging, have at least 1 unused Barbarian Rage power. So this is something you can use after your initial Rage power is used, as long as you have like other daily abilities from higher levels. So you make an attack, Strength versus Armor class. To make this attack, you expend an unused Barbarian Rage power, and then if you hit, you deal extra weapon damage equal to the level of the rage power that you used. So it's a way of kind of like burning all of your rage, but to make like one really powerful attack. So for example, if you used a 1st level one like Blood Hunt Rage, then you get to, like, if that's the one that you have left in reserve, that's a level 1, so you get to add an extra 3 weapon. If you're using a 5th level, you get to add 4 weapons, and it sort of goes on like that. So you sacrifice the ability to use one of those rage powers later for just a massive attack now. And you're already in a rage, so that means that you've already used one of your rage abilities. So anyway, I think it's kind of an interesting take on the class. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I do like that. I like the ability for them to kind of like get all of that, to pour all of that ferocity into like a single attack, even if it makes it like kind of wins them effectively by making it harder for them to find that rage later on in the same day, until they've had a chance to sort of rest and relax. So we have the Barbarian. We do have the Bard, which is an arcane character, but for some reason was included in here. It is kind of neat to see some of the abilities that they would have here. For example, like the Song of Rest. If they spend, if you're resting and somebody spends a healing surge, they get extra hit points back equal to the charisma modifier of the Bard. And this would work similar to like the Song of Rest in like 5th edition D&D, where they get to like roll a die instead and add that to their healing. But they've also got some abilities that might look a bit familiar here. For example, Vicious Mockery, which became a cantrip in 5th edition. That is one of their at-will abilities. Let's see here. Guiding Strike, Fast Friends, so some abilities kind of along those lines. I don't know why it looks like those are colored differently. They shouldn't be, but I don't know, maybe the printer was running low on that ink at that time. But yeah, just the Song of Discord. So a lot of, like, again, this was the edition, the first edition where, you know, the bards were actually able to hang with the other characters in terms of being able to deal damage, as well as have abilities that sort of influence the other party members. Like, for example, the Hymn of Daring Rescue. It's a daily ability. You make a melee weapon attack, charisma versus reflex. You do 3 weapon dice, plus your charisma modifier on a hit. And then you have an effect where you can choose one ally within 5 squares of you. Until the end of the encounter, that ally can teleport to a space adjacent to you as a move action. So you've got, like, the ability to deal damage, to actually be, like, a really active participant in combat. But you also still have the ability to buff and to influence your other party members. And I ran a 3.5 one-shot for a friend of mine who was playing his first D&D game in, like, 13 years or something like that. Let's just say a decade to be on the safe side, but I know it's been longer than that. And he wanted to play a bard because he had never actually played a bard before, and that was one of the classes that he wanted to sort of check off the list. And he did have a good time, but the problem is that for the most part, he would activate one of his bardic music abilities, and he'd have to maintain that. So he just kind of became more of an observer of the combat going on around him, so he could just maintain the use of his ability. And I know there's feats that allow you to do other things while maintaining your music in, like, later books and stuff, but I just find that I like the more proactive bard that we had with 4th edition, and of course that would lead to, like, the 5e bard that we have as well. Like the War Chanter, Paragon Path. We do have our Druid, and the Druid do have wild shape abilities, and I think that's part of their like daily stuff. Someone might have polymorph as a keyword, so it gives you whatever the ability is, like whatever the ability would be, and you basically, like, it doesn't change your stats, but it might give you, like, different attack forms or different forms of movement and stuff like that that you can use. So anyway, I haven't looked too closely at the 4e Druid, so if you want, I could definitely do a deeper dive into that one. Again, I just want to kind of skim through what we have available, because there's another aspect that I actually really like here as well. Then we got the Invoker. So this is, again, kind of almost like, I feel it's almost like a sorcerer version of, like, what a cleric could be, type of thing. But yeah, still really cool. Well, like I said, we can go through some of these classes, and that's one of the things I want to do, actually, is put up a poll and see what types of videos people might be interested in, or at least just put up a thing where people can suggest types of videos. Like, if you want me to go through and, like, do a deep dive on a class from one of the books, I can certainly do that. Or if you want me to go through, like, mechanical stuff, that's fine as well. Then we have the shaman that summons like animal spirits. And then we got the sorcerer. So this is an arcane character. You have 2 different spell sources available here. So you've got dragon magic and wild magic. Dragon magic is kind of interesting because, like, it's more for, like, powering your abilities. So you gain a bonus to the damage rolls of arcane powers equal to your strength modifier. If you're not wearing heavy armor, which you're not proficient in, so you probably wouldn't be, you can use your strength modifier in place of your dex or intelligence modifier to your armor class. You also get the dragon soul, which allows you to get to choose one energy type, and you gain resistance to that, which increases as you go up in through the different tiers. And then scales the dragon. The first time you become bloodied during an encounter, you get a +2 to armor class until the end of the encounter. And then you've got, like, wild magic. And it doesn't have like the mess up table that they have in like the 5e1, but it says you draw spells from the entropic forces of the elemental chaos, whether tapping into the power of primordial beings or drawing strength directly from that plane. You unleash magic and wild surges. So you have Chaos Burst. Your first attack roll during each of your turns determines the benefit you gain that round. If you roll an even number, you gain +1 bonus to armor class until the start of your next turn. And if you roll an odd number, you make a saving throw. So there's a few abilities that have like the save ends feature. So the way that works is you would take the whatever the effect is, and then at the very end of your turn, you get to roll a saving throw, which is just a d20 roll. And I think it's 11 higher or 10 or higher ends the effect. So it's just basically, it's kind of the equivalent of like a flat check in Pathfinder, although there are things that can give you bonuses, so I guess it's not quite the exact same, but it's not really against like a set DC. You're just trying to roll a certain number on the die. And, but with this ability, if you get to make a saving throw, you could end that effect before you would take that round's, before it would apply to you in that round. So I kind of like that's a neat ability. It wouldn't come into play a ton, but it can be helpful when it does. And then you've got Chaos Power. You gain a bonus to the damage rolls of arcane powers equal to your Dex modifier, and it adds extra damage on top of it as you go up through the tiers as well. Then you have Unfettered Power. When you roll a natural 20 on an attack roll for an arcane power, you slide the target 1 square and knock it prone after applying the attack's other effects. When you roll a natural 1 on an attack roll from an arcane power, you must push each creature within 5 squares of you 1 square. So, sliding, I think sliding allows you to move the target however you want. And then there's the push, and I think there's pull. So pull has to come towards you, push has to go away from you, and I think slide you can move in any direction. So if you roll a natural 1, everybody within 25 feet of you basically gets knocked 5 feet away from the caster in all directions. And then Wild Soul, so when you finish an extended rest, you roll a d10 to see what you are resistant to and for that day. And that goes up by 5, starts at 5, and then goes up by an additional 5 for each of the tiers of character progression that you go through. So it's kind of neat. You can actually go through and have like all these different things like acid, cold, fire, force, lightning, necrotic, poison, psychic, radiant, or thunder. So it's a better list than what the Dragon Soul has, but the Dragon Soul's choice is locked in, whereas yours could change. And that could be for the better or it could be for the worse. Like if you're going through and trying to fight, like if you're going up against a white dragon, for example, that cold resistance can be really handy, but if you rest for the night and you wake up and suddenly you're, resistant to lightning instead, then that's sort of like the negative thing here. The other thing about sorcerers is that they are very much based on doing elemental damage. So they are all about energy type damage. They are like just an offensive machine. I don't think they've got a ton of... they don't have as much like utilitarian stuff to use outside of combat like wizards might have, or more like the more balanced approach that wizards have. These things are just like meant to blow you up. And then we got the Wild Mage. So you can even go further with the Wild Magic, and you could take the Wild Mage. And this one does kind of have the Surge effect, so again, this would be expanded in D&D 5th edition. And then we got the Warden. So the Wardens, I think, what are they? So you are a defender. As mountains stand fast against the buffeting wind, and trees bend but do not break to the storm. Wardens are stalwart protectors who draw on the primal spirits of nature to defend the natural world from those who would corrupt or destroy it. Some wardens use the power of earth and stone to shield their allies from harm, whereas others summon the primal strength within themselves to increase their ferocity and tenacity. Okay. So almost like a natural, kind of like a combination between like a druid and a paladin type of character. I feel would be what that kind of is. The Verdant Lord, and then we got our epic destinies here. So we got a few different options: the Fate Singer, the Glorious Spirit, the Harbinger of Doom. That seems foreboding. The Lore Keeper, the Revered One. I like the Primal Avatar. But here's one of the things I actually really liked that was introduced in this book. So this one actually introduces backgrounds and the ability for you to kind of like create your own type of like background. But what backgrounds do is they give you a +2 bonus to skill checks with the associated skill from your background. So it's not quite the same as proficiency, but it is an extra type of bonus, and it is untyped. So it could also apply to one of your trained skills if you really wanted it to, or your background could be something that gives you that +2 bonus to a skill that maybe you're not trained in, but you might use more often than you would have thought necessarily, or like you want to choose certain skills because you know that they're going to be useful for how you play your character. But there is something that your background could use that could fill in one of the gaps from like the other skills that you don't have training in. So you get that. You get to add the skill associated with your background to your class skill list before you choose what you're trained and what you're not. So again, it does add some versatility that way as well. I wish they had that in 3rd edition, because whatever it was, I would always make sure that, actually it wasn't perception, then it was 2 different skills. So, but like for the Barbarian in 3rd edition, they have listen as a skill, class skill, but they didn't have spot, so they can hear but not see. And like when you're hunters, you need to be able to do both, right? So, I mean, I don't know. But it is cool that you get to add that to your class list. You get to choose a language connected with your background. You can speak, read, and write that language. And if you are using the campaign setting that offers regional benefits, like from the Forgotten Realms, then you get to add that regional benefit. So this was actually a really cool inclusion, and it was the beginning of having your backgrounds help shape your character. Whereas before, like in 3rd edition, you could write a background, but it didn't have any mechanical impacts on your character. So this was sort of the beginning of that, and we would see in 5th edition backgrounds would be expanded out even more. So like it's kind of neat to have, and with the current 5th edition, that's the background is sort of like what defined your character before they began adventuring. So that's like where all of your attribute stuff come from. You get a feat from it now. So backgrounds went from being something that most people didn't do for their characters to having some pretty decent but minor benefits to being like an integral part of your character creation process. But it did seemingly it did start here, at least for the 4E game, so it's kind of cool to have that. And of course we've always got more feats, particularly for the classes included in here, and we've also got some more equipment that can be used once again for the classes provided. So different types of armor that could be used for your characters, different weapons and magic items. So yeah, again, some neat stuff added in here. Some weapons, staves, and then some new rituals to add. So ritual spell casting is stuff that you can do. It became, again, a thing you can do in 5e, where some spells you can cast using a spell slot, or for a longer casting time, you can do it out of combat without it being a spell slot. So a lot of the utilitarian spells that could be used outside of combat were just turned into these rituals instead. So it's actually a mechanic or a change that I kind of liked, and I like that the two were distinct from one another. So anyway, some cool stuff in here, and that is we got our little keywords that are added in here for the new classes and new abilities, like our rage, reliable. That's what was in the player's handbook. But like the beast forms and stuff like that. So anyway, some really cool stuff. And that's what was added to the player's handbook too. So let me know in the comments below, would you like me to do a deeper dive into the player's handbook, or like some of the classes or some of the other things that were introduced in these books? Let me know that. I will probably put up at some point, I don't know if it'll be a poll, because then I don't want it to be like an exclusive thing, although I could use it to gauge what the interest would be. I'll figure it out, but I will put something up to try to give you guys a bit more direct feedback on like the shape and the future of this video series, because I love D&D 4th edition. I do want to talk about it. I've got a lot of stuff going on, tons of games that I'm running, as well as like just other videos that I have to work on. But I do want to get some of that more direct input from you guys, so I'll probably put something up. But let me know in the comments below, did you play any of the classes or races from the Player's Handbook 2 back in the day? Did you watch those animated videos with the gnome and the different like introduction to 4E stuff they were doing back then? With the guy going around and doing like interviews and stuff like that. Let me know that in the comments below as well. Anyway, thank you all so very much for your time. I appreciate it, and we will see you in the next one. Until then, take care.